3 hours later, Karen sat in interview room B at the Millfield police station, her designer flip-flops replaced with paper slippers and her HOA president badge confiscated as evidence. Detective Sarah Chen sat across from her, a manila folder thick with witness statements spread between them. "Mrs. Whitmore, we have 6 witness statements saying you deliberately superheated the community pool while children were swimming," Detective Chen said, her voice professionally neutral. "The pool reached 105 degrees. Do you understand how dangerous that was?" Karen stared at the two-way mirror, wondering who was watching from behind it. Probably Harold and the other board members, already planning her removal from office. Probably some of the parents too, hungry for justice. "They wouldn't leave," Karen said simply. "The pool closes at 8 p.m. It's posted. It's in the community bylaws. I sent reminders to every household. So you decided to boil them out." The word boil hung in the air like an accusation. Karen had heard it 17 times in the past hour, from the responding officers, from Harold's panicked phone calls, from the angry parents shouting in the parking lot. Each time it sounded more absurd, more criminal, but also more powerful. "I adjusted the temperature to encourage compliance with community standards," Karen corrected. If parents taught their children to respect authority and follow posted rules, none of this would have been necessary. Detective Chen leaned forward. "Mrs. Whitmore, one of those kids has second-degree burns on his feet from touching the pool deck. Another girl had to be treated for heat exhaustion. You could have killed someone." For the first time since arriving at the station, Karen felt a crack in her armor. She thought of the Martinez boy, the one with the sun-bleached hair who'd called her lady. Had he been the one with the burns? "I didn't mean for anyone to get hurt," she said quietly. "But you did mean to hurt them. You wanted to scare them, didn't you?" Karen was quiet for a long moment. Outside the interview room, she could hear phones ringing, voices raised in urgent conversation, the machinery of consequences grinding into motion. "Do you know what it's like," Karen finally said, "to be responsible for something and have everyone ignore you? To send violation notices that get thrown away, to organize meetings that nobody attends, to watch your community fall apart because no one cares about standards anymore?" Detective Chen's expression softened slightly. "I can imagine that's frustrating." "Frustrating?" Karen laughed, a sound with no humor in it. "It's soul-crushing. I moved to Sunny Meadows because it was supposed to be a community with standards. Property values were stable, the neighborhood was maintained, people followed the rules. But over the past few years, it's turned into chaos. Dogs running loose, lawns going to seed, teenagers treating common areas like their personal playground. So tonight you decided to take control. Tonight I realized that nice doesn't work, polite doesn't work, following proper channels doesn't work." Karen met the detective's eyes. "But fear works beautifully." The interview continued for another hour, but Karen knew the outcome was already determined. She'd be charged, reckless endangerment at minimum, possibly assault. Her HOA presidency was over. Her reputation in the community was destroyed. But as she sat in that sterile room, waiting for her lawyer to arrive, Karen felt something she hadn't experienced in years: complete clarity. She'd spent 2 years after her divorce trying to rebuild her life by becoming the perfect neighbor, the model citizen, the responsible community leader. She'd followed every rule, dotted every I, crossed every T, and for what? To be ignored, dismissed, and disrespected by the very people she was trying to help. Tonight, she'd finally gotten their attention. The lawyer Harold had recommended arrived at midnight, a tired-looking man in a wrinkled suit who immediately began talking about plea bargains and community service. "The important thing," he said, "is to show remorse, express regret for your actions, demonstrate that you understand the severity of what happened." Karen signed the papers he placed in front of her and listened to his strategy with half an ear. But as he droned on about damage control and reputation management, her mind was elsewhere. Karen Whitmore stood at the edge of the Sunny Meadows community pool, her designer flip-flops slapping against the wet concrete as she marched toward the control panel. Steam rose from the water like a witch's cauldron, and 6 terrified teenagers clung to the pool's edge, The summer fun transformed into a scene from a horror movie. I told you, they POLCLOCS 80. Karen shrieked, her perfectly styled blonde bob now matted with sweat and humidity. Her finger jabbed at the temperature controls, cranking the heat to its maximum setting. Maybe next time you'll listen when an adult is speaking. It had started as such a promising evening. Karen had spent 3 hours preparing for the monthly HOA board meeting, printing violation notices and organizing her color-coded complaint files. As the newly elected president of the Sunny Meadows Homeowners Association, she took her responsibilities seriously. Perhaps too seriously, according to her ex-husband Dave. But Dave's opinion stopped mattering the day he moved in with that yoga instructor. The trouble began when she'd arrived at the pool house at exactly 7:45 p.m. for her scheduled compliance walkthrough. She'd found a group of teenagers splashing around, their music echoing off the enclosed space, completely ignoring the clearly posted pool hours. "Excuse me," she'd called out, clipboard in hand. "The pool closes in 15 minutes. A lanky boy with sun-bleached hair had looked up from his pool noodle. "Oh, come on, lady. We just got here. Can't you give us like another hour?" The word lady had hit Karen like a slap. She was 38, not 98, and she had a name. More importantly, she had authority. "The rules are the rules," she'd replied, her voice taking on that clipped tone her neighbors had grown to fear. "Pool hours are clearly posted. Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. No exceptions." The teenagers had exchanged glances and snickered. The blonde girl floating on a unicorn raft had actually rolled her eyes. "Whatever, Karen." That's when something inside her snapped. Karen had stormed into the pool house utility room, where the heating and filtration controls were housed. She'd studied these systems extensively during her HOA orientation, noting every switch, every dial, every potential point of failure. Knowledge was power, and power was what these disrespectful children needed to learn about. The temperature dial turned with surprising ease, from a comfortable 78 degrees to 85, then 90, then beyond. The industrial heater hummed to life with increased intensity, and within minutes, the pool began to transform into something resembling a hot tub from hell. "What did you do?" the blonde girl shrieked, scrambling off her inflatable unicorn as the water grew uncomfortably warm. Karen smiled, a cold expression that never reached her eyes. "I'm teaching you about consequences." Now, watching the teenagers flee the increasingly hot water, Karen felt a surge of satisfaction mixed with something darker. She'd spent months trying to get respect through proper channels, sending polite emails about noise violations, organizing community meetings that no one attended, posting reminders about pool etiquette that everyone ignored. But this got results. The pool thermometer climbed past 95 degrees. Steam began rising from the surface in earnest, creating an otherworldly fog that transformed the familiar space into something alien and threatening. Karen stood at the controls like a captain at her ship's wheel, finally in complete command of her domain. "You're crazy," one of the boys yelled as he hauled himself out of the water, his skin flushed red from the heat. Karen's grip tightened on her clipboard. "Crazy?" She'd show them what crazy really looked like. She was thinking about the Martinez family, about the look of shock and fear in their son's eyes as he fled the superheated pool. She was thinking about the other parents who'd ignored her emails, the neighbors who'd rolled their eyes at community meetings, the teenagers who'd called her Karen like it was an insult. They knew her name now. They'd never forget it. Walking out of the police station at 2 a.m., Karen felt the warm night air on her skin and realized she had no idea what came next. Her old life, the careful, rule-following, people-pleasing existence she'd built since her divorce, was over. But maybe that wasn't such a bad thing. As she waited for her Uber, Karen's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Pool's fixed and back to normal temp. But nobody's swimming anymore. They're all too scared. Hope you're happy." Karen stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "Very." She hit send and smiled in the darkness, already planning her next move. The Sunny Meadows community pool had never seen anything like it. By 9 p.m., The water temperature had reached a scalding 104 degrees, and the local fire department was en route after receiving multiple 911 calls about some maniac trying to boil children alive. Karen sat in her car in the parking lot, engine running, watching the chaos unfold through her rearview mirror. Red and blue lights painted the trees in violent colors as emergency responders arrived. She should have left immediately after the teenagers fled, but something kept her anchored to the scene. She needed to see how this story ended. Her phone buzzed with notifications. Angry messages from neighbors, emergency alerts from the community app, and 17 missed calls from Harold Pemberton, the HOA vice president, who'd been nothing but an obstacle to her vision for the community. The phone rang again. Harold's name flashed on the screen. "Karen, what the hell have you done?" His voice was strained, panicked. "The fire chief just called me. They're saying someone tampered with the pool heating system. I simply adjusted the temperature to ensure compliance with pool hours." Karen replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Perhaps now residents will take the community rules more seriously. You could have killed someone." The water hit 105 degrees before they could get it shut down. Karen felt a flutter of something. Fear? Regret? She pushed it down. "Nobody was killed, Harold. Dramatic much? The police want to speak with you. They're calling it reckless endangerment." Through her mirror, Karen watched firefighters in full gear working to cool down the pool. The teenagers who'd fled were now giving statements to police officers, their parents arriving in rapid succession, faces tight with anger and concern. She recognized the Martinez family. Their son was the one with the sun-bleached hair. She'd sent them 3 violation notices this summer alone. Grass too long, garbage cans left out past pickup day, and their dog barking after 10 p.m. They'd ignored every single one. Not anymore. "Karen? Karen, are you there?" Harold's voice cut through her thoughts. "I'm here," she said quietly. "And I'm not apologizing for doing my job." She hung up and turned off her phone. The smart thing would be to drive home, lock her doors, and call a lawyer. But Karen had spent 2 years since her divorce trying to be smart, trying to follow the rules, trying to be reasonable. Where had it gotten her? A community that treated her like a joke, neighbors who ignored her authority, and teenagers who called her Karen like it was some kind of insult. Her name was Karen Whitmore, and she was the duly elected president of this homeowners association. She'd run on a platform of enforcing community standards and increasing property values through strict adherence to regulations. The residents had voted for her. They'd asked for this. A police officer approached her car, flashlight in hand. Karen rolled down her window with forced calm. "Ma'am, are you Karen Whitmore?" The officer was young, probably not much older than the teenagers she'd scared out of the pool. "I am. We need to ask you some questions about tonight's incident at the community pool." Karen looked past him at the scene. The steam still rising from the water, the crowd of angry parents, the fire trucks with their emergency lights strobing against the suburban night. She'd created all of this. For the first time in months, maybe years, she felt truly powerful. "Officer," she said, stepping out of her car with her clipboard still clutched in her hand, "I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm the HOA president, and I was simply enforcing community pool regulations. These children were in violation of clearly posted hours." The officer's expression shifted from professional courtesy to something colder. "Ma'am, you nearly gave 6 kids third-degree burns. That's not enforcing regulations. That's assault." Karen felt the ground shift beneath her feet, but she kept her chin high. "I want to speak to your supervisor." As backup arrived and more questions flew, Karen realized she'd crossed a line tonight that she couldn't uncross. But strangely, she wasn't sure she wanted to. The old Karen, the one who sent polite emails and organized bake sales, had been powerless, invisible, dismissed. This Karen, the one who could make an entire community respond to her will, was someone entirely different. Someone to be feared.